Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of Thatcham Town Council's Planning and Highways Committee. That is on the Tuesday, the 17th of October. And this meeting is being recorded for publication on the Thatcham Town Council YouTube channel. So, turning to the agenda, Madam Clerk, apologies for absence.
Apologies received from Councillor Justin Pemberton and Councillor Ian Cottingham, appointed a substitute.
Thank you. So declarations of interest, and I will start because I think that speaking on behalf of all councillors, we need to declare that the council is the landowner for Brownsfield. So I think that can be taken for all the councillors equally. Are there any other declarations of interest?
Yes, Councillor Cottingham would like to declare he's also chair of the Thatcham Town Cricket Club, which is leases the ground from Thatcham Town Council, and I'm also West Berkshire's representative on the Memorial Hall Trust as well. So I'm also a representative of the trustee and also being a West Berkshire councillor as well.
Any other declarations of interest? None, thank you. So we'll move on to the minutes of the last meeting, the 6th of September. Are there any comments on the minutes? Be no one seeking the floor, so and I propose that we read and confirm those minutes as accurate. That's the minutes of the 26th of September. I propose that, and Councillor McCann seconds that. Are those in favour of adopting those minutes? Or confirming as accurate those minutes? Thank you. That was unanimous. Madam Clerk, any matters arising from that meeting?
Nothing from me, Chairman.
Thank you. So we move on to planning applications, and what must be the planning application with the longest title I've seen ever. Stretching as it does, no, not quite onto the next page. So for the benefit of people, this is quite a complicated application, both in its nature and because of the connection, the impact on different communities in Thatcham. So I'm proposing to structure the discussion as follows. So we'll start with an introduction, and at that point we'll ask people members of the public can ask questions for clarification but not discussion. Then move on to the principle of the proposed scheme, because of course that decision was last made by the previous council, if not the one before that. And therefore we just confirm that we are happy for the concept. Then move on to the details of the scheme itself, and finally the arrangements for the construction, and take it in that order. And in each case, start with a discussion with members of the Planning and Highways Committee, and then we have none of those. So representative of the Memorial Trust is, if you the representative of the Memorial Trust. I am. Cromley, thank you. And then representatives of other organisations, and take Mr. Woodham as representative of the
chairman of the funding committee of the Surface Water Management Plan for Thatcham, and a member of the Thatcham Flood Forum.
Thank you. So, and then if the member of the public would like to speak as well, we can do that. So I'll turn over to Madam Clerk, who will give an overview of this. If you've been to the website, there are about 15 drawings in total, plus the design and access statement, and a number of other documents. So Madam Clerk has hopefully selected the most pertinent ones for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I have indeed. You'll see in front of you, I've provided copies of 4 of the designs, because I think it's going to be easier for you to see them printed in front of you than everything on the screen. These are what I consider to be the most significant of all the designs that have been produced. And then I've provided this summary, which is taken from the design and access statement. And the whole of the design and access statement is printed for you as well. So July 2007 was widespread flooding in Thatcham. In 2009, DEFRA, and that should say WBC, not WBS, so apologies, undertook a surface water management plan for Thatcham, and modelling from that indicated that 1,850 properties in North Thatcham were at risk of surface water flooding. The Memorial Field is the final scheme of the whole plan, the whole surface water management plan. 4 schemes are complete and 3 are due to complete at the end of this year. Currently overland flow originates from urban runoff and drainage exceedance north of the site and flows onto the Memorial Field. The proposed swell will capture these flows and direct the surface water westwards into the proposed basin, reducing the amount of runoff that could cross the Memorial Field and flood properties. Once surface water has been attenuated within the basin, it will drain back into the sewer network once the peak has passed, reducing the risk of flooding. The total site is 1.7 hectares, 1.47, sorry, and the actual detention basin is 0.78 hectares. To enhance the amount of flood storage and minimising impact, I wish I could speak this evening, apologies, or minimising impact on the playing field basin will be deeper in the centre. The capacity is 3,200 cubic metres. The actual swale will be 3 metres wide and 120 metres in length and ½ metre in depth. And the southern section 280 metres in length and varying in height to a maximum of 0.3 metre. And the crest width between 1 metre and 2 metres. There will be a 3 metre wide access track proposed from the northern boundary to facilitate access for maintenance. The 450mm diameter pipe will convey flows from the basin to the existing 750mm sewer. Access to the site via existing pedestrian access from the north with a 2 metre wide footbridge over the swale, and existing pedestrian and vehicle access from the south. The scheme will utilise spoil already collected from other schemes and that is currently stockpiled at the Bowling Green site. Construction traffic will enter from the south from the A4 and Brownsfield Road, and a temporary construction access will be constructed over the existing tennis courts and play area. As far as possible, this minimises complex vehicle movement as well as interaction with pedestrians and public vehicles. Tennis court and play area will be reinstated following construction. A construction traffic management plan will be addressed by way of a suitable planning condition, has been the case with schemes. It's only an area of the play area that will be affected, mostly the swings area that will be taken out of use, and they will be reinstated with new surfacing and swings. One of the 2 tennis courts will be taken out of action, and there will be protective surface overlaying the tennis court and temporary fencing, security fencing to protect the remaining court, which will be in operation. To offset the loss of the tennis court, West Berkshire Council are looking at bringing back into operation additional tennis courts along the A4, which I would presume to be Hennick. The usable space within both the Memorial Field and the cricket club ground will be reduced. Post-construction, it's intended that part of the flood alleviation scheme will accommodate events and sports facilities, although there is still an overall loss to the usable space. Within the cricket club grounds, will require relocation of the batting nets and artificial turf wickets. The dog walking area, there's a couple of options being considered, but no decision yet made, possibly relocating to an area to the north of the swale, or possibly relocating to another site within the town. And removal of existing tarmac pathways across the centre of the field to maximise the available grassed area. That's a summary of the scheme. And then I can project.
Could you project the drawing that I sent you at this stage? So this is not part of wasn't submitted as part of the application, but was part of the exhibition, which shows the water flows across the site. It gives the background.
Did well to remember where it was.
I was just saying exactly the same. I said scan, bing, bing.
Well, I sent it half an hour ago, so I think.
There you go, top of the list.
It's not liking that.
All right.
Bear with me a second.
These drawings are.
Oh, too soon.
Okay, so this is so we've got the whole diagram with the bottom missing. So this shows the computer modelling of the water flows in this area. This scheme is, I think, different from certainly most, if not all, of the other schemes, in that it is not fed by any stream, but this is entirely surface runoff from the Sagecroft estate to the north. And what you basically see here is the routes through the various along the streets and between the houses, reaching the field. But you will see also the ones in grey to the right and the left are effectively, you can see that they end up in a different place. They flow differently to the south. But also you will see that there are other flows either side of the field which are not captured by this scheme. So it's not a complete solution for flooding, but it will reduce the magnitude. So I thought that was a useful diagram to give you context because it's not, let's say, not part of the application.
Sorry, Chair, the difference between the grey, blue and the purple is what?
So the purple is the grey bits on the field are the flows that are being captured, or the reduction in the flow, and the ones to the right, very far right and far left, relate to other flows which are flows to the south of the A4 in different routes.
Yeah.
So in fact, I think the one through the one through the road is it's basically the central ones which are coloured in purple are the paths and the extent of flooding to the south, and you can see that it's reduced there, and the reduction actually gets greater as you go below the diagram because the land gets flatter. It's just an illustration basically of the flow. If you see the detail there that they've modelled, it's effectively models the heights of curbs and the slope of the grass in those areas between the houses. But there are basically three areas that are captured, and particularly you will note that if you go back, if you can sort of split to the left, you will see that there are three flows across there are three flows from the field into the field, and the swale across Brownsfield, the right-hand field, is needed in order to capture that right-hand flow, which comes through an area between garages in the estate.
So below the swale and below the basin is water which will run straight off the fields across.
Would have, but it doesn't. It's captured by the the detention scheme and the swale. Is my understanding, but it's yes, it's pre-development. Grey is pre-development, and purple is post-development extents. So this is 100 year plus margin.
I understood. Right,
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for that. I think at that point, we'll move on to the
Apologies, Chairman, just one more thing to add.
Yeah.
There are some trees to be removed, which were there.
these PDF files are are not flattened.
Okay, so all of the red circles that you can see are to be removed. All those in green with the blue is protective fencing that will be put round them. All of these red ones are to be removed.
Right.
But there will be enhancement planting afterwards as well.
Thank you. So if I say the first stage, to ask for effectively a confirmation or otherwise of the decisions that have been made by this council in the past to support the scheme in principle. So if we make the assumption that a satisfactory scheme can be, the scheme is satisfactory and that the arrangements for construction are satisfactory, if that can be sorted out, do we as a council support the principle of the scheme? And I would say here that having had very lengthy discussions with the consultant, the area that's affected is pretty much fixed because the maximum height of the water is determined by the surrounding land, and the bottom of the basin is determined by having to flow into the sewer. It has to be higher than the sewer, and also it's affected by the ground. The groundwater is relatively high here. There is effectively very little opportunity for certainly changing the size, the total area of the basin if to achieve the target performance, which is effectively a requirement for the funding to be given. So, anyone, council wishes to comment on our previous support in principle for the scheme? No. So before having a vote, I'll turn to representatives. Particularly, I would guess that the Memorial Trust has a particular interest in this. Are you content? Do you have any comments on the principle of the scheme on the field? If those other issues could be resolved.
We do, but you need to suspend standing order.
Sorry, that's very true. First of all, if we've changed the order, so I have to invite members of the public to speak. I propose that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cottingham. Those in favour of inviting members of the public to speak, well, and that's unanimous. So I will then thank you for reminding me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Although there are three of us on the board here, I think I've been elected to talk on behalf of the foundation. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and councillors. The foundation is the primary landowner for who this affects, does not wish to object to the scheme. You know, we do not object to the safety and the future security of businesses and homes in the floodplain. But that doesn't mean we don't have concerns. We have concerns in two areas. One would be the actual design of the scheme, and the second would be the build process.
Can I come back to those later? So if you just accept that, just at the moment, I'd just like to get a view on the principle, because if we were to decide that we didn't support the principle at this point, then the rest of the discussion would be rather.
Okay.
So any other member of the public wish to comment on the principle of the scheme on the memorial field? I see no one wishing to speak. Councillor Crumley.
I just say briefly that I support, and I think everybody else does here, in principle, the general proposal of this flood prevention schemes being a very good idea for everybody in Thatcham. So generally supportive.
Thank you. So I would like to propose at this point that we, Councillor Cottingham.
Can I speak on behalf of Thatcham Town Cricket Club as well?
Is it on the principle of the scheme?
On the principle.
Okay.
Agree on the principle, and obviously we have probably similar concerns about how the scheme is going to be implemented and the impact on the top field and the compensation as well. So, and the loss of land, which will impact our ability to do coaching for juniors for girls cricket as well. So that is, and also the aesthetics are going to look thereafter as well.
Okay. So thank you for that. So if I turn to the councillors, I would like to propose at this point that we support the principle of the scheme, provided that we can track the subsequent stages can be satisfied. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you very much, Councillor McCann. All those in favour of confirming the principle of the scheme? That's.
I should say, I'm not on this committee, so
Okay.
I don't have a vote tonight, though I would certainly support it.
Okay, thank you. So that is unanimous to support the principle. Moving on then to step 2, which is the design of the scheme itself. And I say we'll discuss the interim or temporary measures for construction, during construction, and a third stage. So the scheme there, you can see the scheme in, well, you can see that it has a lot of detail, which means you can't actually see the detail on the screen. And I'm pretty familiar with the scheme now. If anybody has any questions about it, you can see there that the swale does come into the into Brownfield by quite a significant distance, and that is it has to go all the way across, as I pointed out, because it has to capture the water flow at the right hand side, and it has to be in that. It is in that position for 2 reasons, largely, which is to avoid damaging tree roots, and secondly, that the diagonal line that goes across the field there is the oil pipeline. And for some reason, apparently its depth varies across that portion of the land. And therefore, were you to move it further up, it would actually impinge more on the pipe. And that's another reason why they couldn't do that. So that is the proposal. Does anyone have any comments on this? The design itself. So, Councillor Cottingham.
You mentioned the oil pipeline.
Yeah.
Has clarification been obtained from, because I believe it is an asset of national security, that we've had the go-ahead from them that such swale can be built above the pipeline? Because
So
without that approval, I would imagine.
So they,
It is in the design and access statement that is.
Okay, any other comments? I have one comment, and I'll turn back to the Memorial Trust. The footway, the footpath that goes across the scheme. So effectively, a footpath comes from the field into the right hand side. It crosses a bridge, and then follows that area that cross-hatched in brown. That is described as being, if you look at the plan, as being, where is it? Net pave 50, which I think is intended to be one of these materials which is concrete with holes in it, which enables grass to grow. And that is what I understood from the discussions. Now, I have reservations about that because that is a path which is used by a wide variety of people, including people possibly with mobility difficulties or sight difficulties. And the current path obviously has a clear, visible, probably tactile boundary, whereas net pave would not. And my feeling there is that ought to be a solid surface with clear edges, a bit like the dementia-friendly garden. The same issues apply, and I don't think that grass with concrete under it, grass with concrete points surrounded by grass achieves that. So my one comment, and I'll turn to the Memorial Trust to see if they would agree with this, is that the path should be a continuous hard surface continuing around the swale as well as to the south of it. And do you have any? I'll turn again to we've invited you to speak, so we don't need to do so again. Do you have any comments about?
The church.
And if you have a reaction to that comment as well.
The foundation does have to thank West Berkshire Council for its time in trying to include us in the design of this. We started with a attenuation pond almost twice the size in the centre of the field, so we've moved on from that. But we are still concerned. We've been consulted on various issues and asked to make decisions on placement of the scheme, only to be told actually it's not possible. So the trustees do feel almost tokenistic we have had we've heard and seen a lot of input from the cricket club. But one thing we're not, we're, I wouldn't say critical, but wonder where Thatcham Town Council's voice has been as the other landowner. That's something that we as a landowner and as your neighbour don't really understand where the town council sits as a landowner rather than the cricket club as its tenant. Thank you for making me aware of that, Mr. Chairman, regarding the paths. The paths have changed, I think, 13 different times so far. And the surfaces, we've been told, like much of what the town clerk read out, decision hasn't been made at this point. Options are being sought, options are being looked at. You know, a general feeling from the foundation and its board is that, you know, planning permission is being sought for something that still isn't set in stone. You know, and how relevant is going for planning permission when so much is undecided. And just really, you know, hopefully, you know, I trust all members in the room tonight that are voting are aware of the corporate consultee responses to this and the no less than scathing response from Sport England at the loss of facilities. It concentrates on the loss of the cricket facilities. But the flood alleviation scheme currently sits where we have 3 5-a-side pitches and straight the way through the middle of the 7-a-side that was supposed to be installed this September. So not only does it cut across the cricket provision, it cuts across the football provision. And, you know, both for us and the cricket club as not-for-profit organisations, not only does this affect our sustainability, but it removes any opportunity for the viability of growth in the future. And, you know, we just want to make sure that the community and those people that have an influence on this understand what a huge change to the landscape this is, and arguably the way it may well deprive future generations. And I think that's all my comments on the design. So I'll go sit back down for now. If you have a question.
I don't know. I think that's fairly. I hadn't looked at. I've looked through most of the documents. I hadn't got to the Sport England one, but that is obviously.
I mean, the highlights of Sport England are, were this approved, we will ask for the Secretary of State to be included. If it was agreed at that point, they would look for a High Court review. I mean, you know, as I say, the word scathing is sort of a summary of the letter from Sport England.
Right. Sorry, Nathan, is that in this document? Yeah, or is that a separate document?
I don't know what you've got.
No, it's not in that. That's a design and access statement. So
On West Berkshire Council's website under the planning application, are all the corporate consultees,
yeah,
along with the tree plan that the town clerk showed. There is a consultation response for Sport England.
so Exfoliant has responded that Exfoliant is a pipeline operator. So, and I suspect that if they had concerns, that would be definitive.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for pointing that out, Nathan.
Yeah. Definitely.
Could you scroll up a second?
How much power does Sport England have?
Not a lot.
Oh, good.
well,
Well, they have money, that's.
it depends how far they take it.
Yeah, that's the point.
So for me, the wider issue here is if Thatcham Town Council or looking to get funding for Sport England, we won't get anything. And especially if there is looking to do wider redevelopment in this area. Okay. You know who wrote this?
It's the name at the bottom of the report. As far as I could refer you.
I think I know the name. It's the same person I think who has been involved in other losses of other sports facilities in West Berkshire.
Dear.
So,
Unfortunately, that's not our decision because we're not decision makers.
no, but it might affect what we ask as a condition on the grant, which would be the replacement of for West Berkshire Council to find a replacement for the facilities, for the lost facilities. So,
Doesn't it?
sorry?
Doesn't happen to people in Thatcham, does it? West Berkshire's a big county.
Yeah, but we can say in this area, within the neighbourhood of Thatcham, I wouldn't. Probably within the parish of Thatcham would probably be a good definition. But Mr. Cromley.
Yes, may I say a few things?
Yeah, from there, or come forward.
Well, let me explain, I'm a member of the Thatcham Memorial Hall trustees, usually referred to just as the foundation. And that's, but I'm also a private citizen, and bear in mind, you've heard from Nathan Gregory, I guess I better submit that what I'm saying is as a private citizen. Generally is supportive of this proposal for reasons that you've already said, and I've echoed and supported. What concerns me, I guess, is the length of time this project's going to take. I think
I'll come back to that next, that's the next stage.
Next stage. Or can I just say, like every other building project, I suppose it'll overrun, and so the damage to infrastructure will be considerable. It's the access way that concerns me. They're proposing.
Can I come back? That's part of the construction phase. So can I, at the moment, I'm just looking, I'd just like to, at the moment, to discuss the final design, the finished detention basin. And I'll come back to the issues any issues relating to the construction phase after we've decided on that, if you don't mind.
I'll be able to speak on that.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that was my principal point. I'm generally in support of what this scheme is trying to achieve.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll be back.
So, Mr. Woodham, have you got any comments on the design that you'd like us to take into account?
Not specifically the design.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what the right sequence of events is. I know one of the issues that cropped up in the public consultation was about dog exercising, etc. And I know that that's been under discussion in various guises for some long time.
Yeah.
And I know that, as we suggested it, that they look at the area to the north of the Whale as a compensatory area, which would involve local people not having to go any further than they do today, basically, exercise their dogs locally.
Yes.
And not have to go to another part of Thatcham at cost to the council for providing. So I would like to hope that that could be put to bed, that issue, from the point of view of a judgment of acceptability.
Yes.
Because I agree, there are other matters that I understand will be discussed later about that. The access issue is a serious issue. So I might just make a comment on the design in the sense of, I thought a very good summary at the beginning. I've been 11 years chairing the committee that's from the Thatcham point of view got us this far. And all I'd say is I understand the sporting comments. I wouldn't expect anything different from a body, an esteemed body. On the other hand, this is an adopted scheme by the Environment Agency and West Berkshire Council, not this scheme on its own, but the whole of the surface water management plan.
Yes.
This isn't a standalone scheme in that respect. So, in fact, look at it the other way around. We've heard all the schemes to date bar one element, the one that runs down to Kensington Playing Field, or the recreation area. All of those to trap the water that cascaded off the hillsides around us to the greatest possible degree. But as you know, the last ones are being built as we speak. But one of them was there are two flow routes through the town. There only are two because of the amount of building. One was the one that goes Duncan Green and then goes on down to the Kennett School fields and out to the recreation area. And there are similarities I would suggest. I don't want to make too big a point of it, but children's play areas were affected when that was done. Access was affected. School playing fields were partially out of commission for part of the time. I understand that there's no land take in the sense that we're talking about here, but the ideas are the same. This is the only other flow route through the town that's possible. And it was in the adopted, it was a scheme in the original adopted plan by the EA. So in a sense, what we're trying to do is square a rather difficult circle to understand.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that everything's perfect, but I would also say that there is an issue that comes into this that is aside from the design. But if this was to be rejected at this point, the ability to get it built next year is gone. And with that may go best part of £2 million of funding that you can't be sure would ever be rolled over. We have some pretty tough circumstances that are going on.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that back in 2021 on our committee, we persuaded West Berkshire Council to accelerate the remaining schemes so they can all be built out by the end of 2024, which is the front end, the first 3 years of the 6-year EA funding cycle. And no matter how one looks at national politics, I don't think anybody can be that confident that funding, departmental fundings are going to be pretty secure going forward. So it's not, that's not to say that's not a, that's irrelevant. It's not a design consideration, I understand, but it's a question of whether we ever get it done. It ought to be also in the minds of the committee, if I may suggest it.
Thank you. So if I try to summarise, I think in terms of this, we're sort of getting another stage before we reach a final conclusion. Councillor Lillicrop, have you got any comments? I see you're not actually a member, but do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, broadly support what Mr. Woodham was saying. I mean, this is the final stage, effectively, of a 13-year scheme. It does have specific characteristics which make it quite different from almost all the other parts of the flood alleviation scheme. But yes, we are reliant on the Environment Agency for the funding to make sure this is completed. And at the end of the day, it is designed to protect a significant number of houses, as every stage of this scheme has been. And I think everyone who went through the experience of 2007 is only too aware how essential it is that whatever final scheme we come up with in this area, it is performing a vital role to ensure that similar catastrophes don't strike households in similar weather events in the future. So it really comes down to making sure we have the best design in place, and that we understand how significant the role is.
Okay, so in terms of the specific comments we've got at this stage, the first one, possibly the most straightforward, is the request that the footpath has a continuous hard surface with clear edges for accessibility for people with mobility issues and restricted visibility and other impairments. The second one is relating to the
Dog park.
yeah, but we'll go to dog walk in a second. So we have a preference. We have a preference for the area to the north of the swell being used if that is feasible. And the third one was relating to the comment from Sport England and how we respond to that. So,
Sorry, did you say preference to north of the swell? It's your land. Can't you make that decision?
We can. There may be safety issues or whatever. So we were quite. I think also, of course, that that is not a decision for this committee at this stage as a final decision. So but I think
Yeah, the issue potentially with the dog walking area being north of the swale, during the cricket season when games are being played, there would have to be a fence high enough to stop people walking behind the bowler's arm. So I know it's a small technicality, but the fence would have to be significantly high enough, again, which will then add cost and potentially is aesthetics of what it would look like as well. So yes, I understand exactly, but we couldn't have a situation whereby we would say we're not allowed to giving people any access on a match day. That would not work.
So if we add to that, so we say we have a preference and that the council as the landowner for that land wishes to explore that possibility further with West Berkshire Council. Councillor McCann.
Yeah, could I ask a question through you to the memorial fund? Would they have any objections to the left-hand side of the proposed area becoming the dog walking area? Because it's only ever going to be used once in 100 years. Would you have any objections to the dog walking being on the left-hand side of the proposed development? Because that's just sloping in.
Back to
you, Chair.
Nathan Green.
It's still this question of whether it comes back to what I said earlier, that there are still many ifs, buts, maybes, no decision made. There are schools of thought with the designers of West Berkshire Council that area to the left, the paler green rather than the turquoise known as the upper basin, would be suitable 90% of the time for football or even for parking cars on for the car B. No designer and no engineer can give us any guarantee on where the water will lie when it's built. So the answer at this point is
yes, in principle.
potentially. If it's not usable for anything else, maybe.
So the design action statement does give some figures for the volume of water in various periods. 1 in 10 year, it's only 140 cubic meters. And given that it's not fed from a stream, it's only fed from overflow from the streets. My guess is that the lower basin and the blue area, whatever that's called, will actually capture the 140 cubic meters. And therefore it's a sort of 1 in 10 year that the water would actually go over the level.
From a sort of business plan point of view for us.
Yeah.
But we will not know the extent until it's built and the way the land lies when it's being completed.
But I think that the point I'm making is that there is reasonable prospect that it will be very infrequent of 1 in several years, if not more, which is less frequent than the bottom of Hennick-Worthy. So if we got that, and the third point then, do we express, how do we phrase our response to this comment from Sport England? We recognise, we agree with it,
I must
in light, can I suggest this, in light of the comment of Sport England, that we request West Berkshire Council to seriously consider the provision of equivalent facilities elsewhere within the parish of Thatcham.
Yes.
Yeah, I must admit, I would like to read the report in its.
Yeah, because it's just.
Yeah. So, but for the purposes of this meeting, of course,
Can we come back to that?
Yeah, okay, because of course we'll have to agree. Our overall view may change when we've discussed the construction phase.
Sorry, Mel, you're able to forward that link, because I must admit, I've struggled to find it.
It's West Berkshire Council planning.
And then you
Planning applications, and you go through documents and
to the left hand side, we want that a lot.
Quite a bit
There you go.
Deliberately.
You can download that and forward it to you as an email.
Okay, so moving on to the construction phase, which has been probably the topic of most comment between councillors, and I suspect between other parties as well. So who would like to open the discussion on actually, have you got the drawing of the construction phase here, because that's quite important.
That the blue one.
But here, yeah, that's the blue one, yeah, okay. The one with the blue, there's two on actually, going up the difference. It's, sorry, the one with the blue line, which is representing the, the access road. And a larger area, the fence extends, the red line surrounding the scheme itself extends further south, further down than the final design. So more land particularly will be taken from the cricket club during the period of construction. So just to say on the period of construction, it is planned that work would start early next year, preparatory work would start early next year, particularly things to do with trees before bird nesting season.
Yeah.
And that would enable the work to be started once the weather is good enough, and it would then hopefully be completed during next year before it gets too wet again. Not sure about how quickly the restoration would take place, but the actual construction itself, that is the drawing. You will see there that the intention is that the access way, the road would leave Brownfield Road roughly on the corner, which is that on the corner when it turns right. So that's Brownfield Road, if you can see the arrow there. And then where it turns right towards the town council, the road would go off and then go through the tennis courts, through part of the play area along the boundary, and then veer off to avoid the trees and then reach the site. And then I said that the red line area indicates the boundary during the construction, which is obviously, it takes out more of the field than would be the case once the work's completed. And you will see there that so this is showing the current buildings and features, and you will see slightly diagonally pointing slightly right about 12:30-ish in our clock. If you could go back upwards to the very top, that there is the tennis nets, which will actually be the cricket nets, which would be which are partially affected by the swell, but then will be totally within the area of the red line, the site boundary during construction. So, councillors' comments on the construction phase. So I turn first to Councillor Cottingham.
I must admit, echoing what Sport England are saying, I do have concerns that going straight through the tennis court, that, you know, what is going to be the long-term viability of the tennis club. I do feel that losing those two tennis courts after going through a period of I suppose, renaissance, that the fact that the number of tennis courts now are being fully occupied. And I know through past experience, once you take away a resource, people go and find somewhere else to play, and it's very, very difficult to get them back. So I do have concerns, and also the loss of the play area. We've spent all this money having the play area, and effectively it will be out of action. Now, echoing what Mr. Crumbly said, I do fear that 12 months will turn into 18 months, and the fact that we're going to be looking at this as a scheme still happening, I don't know, in 2025, never mind being completed in 2024. I think it's potentially going to be quite optimistic, because who knows what other issues are going to be encountered whilst the swale and the scheme is actually taking place. And also I do have concerns over lorries coming straight down Brownsfield Road with mud and dirt on them, and people are well aware that you have people who stand outside waiting for prescriptions and also park their cars on the road as well, who've got blue badges, and there won't be enough room for big lorries, construction site, to get backwards and forwards. So yeah, apart from that.
I'll just make a few comments there that I understand. I'm not sure if it's in the design and access statement, but I understand from the discussions that there would be, at all times when there were lorry movements, there would be a banksman who would be ensuring that they waited for vehicles and pedestrians. I think probably there would need to be some temporary traffic regulation order to ensure that the road remains accessible to the lorries. So to give you a rough idea, back of envelope calculation, the removal of the soil is several hundred movements of a lorry, and the replacement with clay is about half that, because the basin needs to be clay lined. So and that would happen hopefully in two fairly condensed periods, not across the whole period of the work. And then in addition, there'd be quite a small number of movements of larger lorries carrying the construction machinery itself. Plus, of course, the vehicles of the contractors, and I'm not quite. It's not clear from this whether they're intending to park on the site. We did ask them in the consultation to minimise the area that is taken out, and therefore to find other places to park, like for example the Memorial car park with suitable payment. But it's not clear, I think, from this what the outcome is on that. Councillor McCann.
I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask, and then there may be people here who may be able to answer the questions other than members. During the consultation process, I believe there was concerns raised with cleaning the roads. There's about 6 or so other sites around. And while there is a cleaning road management plan in place for all of these, it was generally felt that it was extremely badly monitored. And you only need to look at the one that's down at the bottom of Thatcham to turn around and see that hasn't been cleaned for months. Although it's coming to the end of its process, I would be very concerned that we end up with mud trip through the town centre main road because they haven't actually washed the lorries. That would be a big concern for me. And but that's I'm sure there will be a street cleaning plan in. But actually, if they wash the wheels, that would actually help us. And then we must insist that it's monitored. And if you see the point I'm trying to make there, that's the first thing.
Washing wheels only works if there's somewhere for the water to go after.
That's if they can dig a big ditch, they can dig another big ditch and put something like that in. And the other point was, and this is probably the one that would need to be answered, not from us. There's of the other schemes in and around Thatcham, have they come in on time and on budget to give, because there's genuine concerns. If 6 months goes into 18 months, goes into 2 years, there's absolute concern. And I suppose we could only really judge what's likely to happen by what's likely to have just happened. It's like, that may be a question for other people that are here this evening, Jane.
Okay. Well, perhaps if I turn direct response to that to Mr. Woodham, who has direct experience of the previous schemes. It's a question of fact, really. Have they been completed but largely on time? How well have they achieved their stated timescales?
The curious egg, some have, some haven't. I mean, it's often been dependent on weather. You're dealing with a lot of soil material. So I haven't come with a catalogue of finish times. I think they're very valid questions. I would say I think broadly speaking, where they've been relatively simple schemes from an engineering perspective, and frankly this is mainly a muck chipping job. Yes, we'll build a swale and put some pipe work in and crash screens and all that sort of stuff, but it's not exactly heavy engineering. that you could look at the schemes that are going on right now. I've been watching them. In fact, there's a site visit tomorrow, so I've been trying to get on site there for ages, and official site visit. And I've been watching the flow of things, the ebb and flow. My feeling is that I hear the words, here's 6 months being bandied around. I think we'd be more prudent to assume 9, but I don't think I would expect to go to 18. The material is already there. It's not as though they're having vast amounts of material to find or to dispose of. I mean, it should be well balanced in my understanding in that way. So I mean, I think it would be the key issue here is, well, 2 key issues. One is the site clearance work, but so the trees, hedges and stuff that have to be sorted out, and actually the access rep. Particularly the site clearance has to be done by the end of February. And that would be the need. A contractor that West Berkshire use regularly. It's not my responsibility to know this, so I'm speculating. Who I believe would be ready to move in very fast once planning permission is granted. Because if those trees aren't cleared, nothing can happen on that site for another year. All right, that would just seem to be very difficult to follow. So sometimes we've had delays through the way the planning process was worked out. I'm not blaming the process. This time we tried to turn it on its head. So get going through a pre-planning application phase, which West Berkshire have never done before with any of their own schemes. So they were learning to try and get all the issues that are coming up this evening known about while the planning application is on the table, not have new issues, which delays everything and you lose time. So I would, again, I'm so long-winded answer. I'm sorry I'm not being too precise, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
But I would think if you just said to yourself, if we can get a good start in April, everything material ought to be off site by the end of the year. That doesn't mean to say there isn't some post-period planting that goes on because it's the wrong time of the year to plant, etc. And that's happened with all the other schemes. So it's a question of what you regard as completion. I would say it would be highly unlikely they wouldn't get all the heavy work done and all the major construction stuff offsite before the end of next, but later at the end of next year would probably be a good rule of thumb. That gives a reasonable amount of time for bad weather and other problems.
Thank you very much. So, any further comments from councillors?
One final.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know if we have any services running under or near that road that may need to be looked at? Because we just had a water issue.
Tennis courts, Councillor McCann.
Yes. So that's from as an own landowner's perspective. Where just a bit, perhaps we just need to make people aware of what we know what is there.
Yes.
It's not unreasonable, is it?
No, that's a good point.
Mr. Gregory, do you have anything to add?
I do, but Richard, do you want to go first?
Okay.
Your comments?
Yes, but my concerns are about the access way that is proposed. Other access ways have come up in correspondence that I've seen, including one from the north, from Thatcham Road, and speaking entirely selfishly, I suppose as a member of the foundation, that's what I would like to see. That would save us the foundation from the destruction of tennis courts and the children's play area that's introduced. Has any consideration been given to the prospect of coming in from the north? An alternative would be, heaven forbid, to access be through the car park of this council and then turn left. That would save the destruction of the tennis courts and the play area to which I have already referred. Other concerns are, believe it or not, HS2. Not quite on the same par as this, but that got started and then got cancelled halfway through. What the hell would happen if, bear in mind all the problems of government of this country, that the funding was withdrawn halfway through this project? we lost our tennis courts, and everything was left as a mess. All right, that's unlikely, but it's something to be put in mind on behalf of the foundation.
But I go back to Mr. Woodham, who's probably going to give us an answer to that.
Yes, I mean, I actually agree with what is being said in the sense of have all other considerations been taken into account? Not people who've been covering engineer or West Berkshire Council, but I do know that they look very, very, very closely at that northeastern access point. And it simply would compromise the swale to the extent that it wouldn't be catching the most easterly flow. And there are problems about the width of the roads, essentially a mistake area. I know that was looked at carefully, and I know it was ruled out on a number of facts. Cricket club entrance, I do remember that discussion coming up in June. And there's possibly a councillor sitting at the table who might be able to give you an answer to that. So
on the northern access from Sagecroft, I did discuss that. We did, or a number of us did discuss that at some considerable length with the consultant. And basically, the width of the roads, the number of residential houses with parking that would be affected, and the turning circles make it effectively impractical. It's not impossible. It wouldn't be. It's not a feasible solution from a highways perspective.
Just add, Mr. Chairman, on the issue of budget, it isn't paid for after the event. What the process with these schemes is that the capital is allocated or come in the form of a letter to the Chief Executive of West Berks in about March of next year, and that's committed. It's not a question of budget. So the issue is the budget big enough? So that's where I think the requirements for compensations and all of that stuff. I know the discussions are going on. I'm not party to them, but the process would be that the capital would be there. It's not. I don't think it's an issue of HS2.
And it's likely to be a single contract, I guess, a single master contract. So there would be, Okay. I guess yes. Do you want to?
Can I answer the question over the alternative of going through the car park and then a diagonal across the cricket field? So on the map, it would be. Where are we? It's in here, isn't it? Yeah. So go through the car park, and then you've got the picket fencing going straight across here. It would mean the changing rooms would be totally out of action. It would mean also our bar revenue would be significantly impacted. And I think you could say goodbye to cricket next season for that. And our ability to pay our lease, everything else.
I think more fundamentally, I think that the turning circle, the turning radius from Brownsfield into the entrance is not feasible. So
many bends, you've got a right hand turn, a left hand turn, and a right hand turn, and a left. You think of chances of running over a kit, you know.
I think the low loaders wouldn't make it.
They'd never get through highways.
Yeah. So I think that the right hand route is not feasible.
It was an interesting solution, which I did propose, but then once we looked into the detail, as Councillor McCann has just alluded to, from a technical perspective, it doesn't work, but also just the sheer impact here as well.
Okay. Any further comments from that you have?
Good guess, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think generally just sort of reinforcing what other colleagues have said this evening. We are concerned about the soil and the mess on site and the usability of other parts of the site. Councillors have alluded to the state of the roads north of the site. I live quite close to Kennett School and Siege Cross, and despite the site being open, it wasn't usable. You couldn't use the paths and things like that. It became dangerous, the state they were left in. And so the board have great concerns over these comments of length and overrun and possibilities. And Officially, we were told in an email, the scheme would take 3 months to build. It would start on the 1st of April and we hope to be out by the end of October. Now, simple math says that that's 7 months to start with. And, you know, I'm not holding Mr. Woodhams to this, but he's just alluded to the possibility of hopefully being out by the end of the year. You know, we've been informed that after the site was reinstated, it is intended that a grounds maintenance company come in and seed the site in December. And at least 2 of you are chuckling, so you're on the same wavelength as me. That, you know, if I recall correctly, something similar happened at Dunstan Green, where in the end it took two goes to reseed it for it to actually take. It all seems endemic to the foundation of this almost lack of planning and lack of understanding of the implications. Now, as Mr. Woodhams alluded to earlier, this site was chosen and approved by West Berkshire Council in 2011. We were not made aware of it as the landowner until 2019. Ever since then, we've jumped up and down at every possible opportunity to try and get this planning in, and not planning as planning application, but planning of the effects and how it will actually work. We were informed 8 days before the public consultation of the plan there in front of you. And that still isn't the plan that was taken to the public consultation. This is a new plan that first appeared in the planning application. And to date, the foundation as a landowner has not been given formal notice that they intend to do the works. Has not been given any notice of the further change of plans again, and has still not been given any notice that it's part of a planning application. One of my colleagues last week rang to ask where the orange notices are on site. They appeared on Monday. West Berkshire Council's own website is confused between the deadline of the consultation, giving both tomorrow, the 18th of October, signage giving the 3rd of November, and the website updated this afternoon saying the 17th of November. I rang West Berkshire Planning and no one can tell me what the actual date is. You know, none of this allays the foundation's concerns and arguably doesn't give us any trust in what's being delivered. You know, my colleague Mr. Crumley said, you know, what happens if they run out of money? You know, we still don't know what things are going to cost. We talk about trees, and you know, it would appear that the new blue curve on the plan on the map, which is literally saw it last week when I saw the planning application, is to save the copse of trees. I mean, in previous versions, they were happy for that to go, but there seemed to be so much objection in the public consultation about trees. They're choosing to keep ash trees that have got disease and have got approximately 2 years lifespan, but get rid of a copse of trees that have been there since 1969 and a mature oaks that have been there for 55 years. It comes back to this whole lack of cohesiveness to the plan. And that's what concerns us. I find it interesting that it appears that certain councillors and members might have more information than we do about the options for the access. Our communication with the designers is there are 4 viable options for access to the site. Only 2 of those options are in the public consultation for those attended, and only 1 has appeared in the planning application. We have written on a number of occasions to West Berkshire Council to ask the understanding from West Berkshire Council on why things have been discounted, why other things have been chosen. To date, there's been no answer. A stakeholder meeting was suspended on the basis of a new route through the cricket club. We've subsequently been told it was perfectly viable. There were solutions for the town council's operations with staff parking the community buses, but the cricket club refused permission. And that's what we got from Andrew Reynolds and West Berkshire Council. That's what we were told. We can't understand why, you know, why for us, it's the difference between, as you're probably aware, Ian is a colleague of mine on the Memorial Trust as well as his many other hats. So, you know, it is difficult for Ian, I get, to have so many hats and so many interests. But from a foundation point of view, You know, the cricket club advertises it has 150 members that meet on a Friday night and a weekend. The tennis courts are used in the summer as early as 6 o'clock in the morning until 10:30 dusk. They will use every opportunity of daylight. There are now 1,500 people using the tennis court schemes across Thatcham and Newbury. There is a capacity problem that our courts are used heavily by Newbury Tennis Club based in Shore because there isn't enough capacity within the scheme. So we were taking that away. And really for us, it's a case of, yes, we're a not-for-profit, we're a charity. But because we have no government funding, we have no ability to raise capital or anything like that, there's no council tax paid to us. The charity's assets do need to be viewed as commercial. You know, if we can't run the tennis courts, they're going to go elsewhere. You know, there's already objections to the tennis club and the operators of the tennis scheme. The other 7 courts do not have the capacity. You know, we've fought for almost 5 years with Cold Ash to offer better than Cold Ash to people of Thatcham, and it's worked. You know, the payments, you know, we've spoken about payments, we're looking at £28,000 in lost revenue for the charity. That's without the loss of provision to members of the public. Appreciate what Brian Williams is saying about the play area. Yeah, other sites have suffered that, but now we're looking at losing more land to protect less. I mean, even the tree report refers to them as negligible quality, these trees. You know, the circus is now out. You know, I find it interesting that the people that are picking up the circus are the town council. It doesn't, you know, it just feels like because we're not a big boy, so to speak, and we're in our own land rather than lease it from a council, we're the lowest player. We're losing a huge amount of land. We're losing a load of assets for us. The car boot, the Funfair and Circus are not only a benefit to the community, they are our way of keeping alive. As I say, for us, we've been told there are 4 viable options. We were told point blank, it was not politic to go through Tennyson Road because of the residents and the reaction from the residents. One option I understand was suggested with the cricket club, suggested moving the war memorial at the front of the site, which we object to. And as I said, you know, for us, we are not going to consent or approve the destruction of the tennis courts in the play area whilst there are other options that are viable. And we've made that quite clear to West Berkshire Council as well. You know, displacing 2,000 people a week that use the site to protect 150 people in the cricket club or to protect the doctor's surgery, you know, there are the same issues with Tennyson Road regarding cars parked and the lack of traffic orders and no civil enforcement officers as we'll find on Bransfield Road. You know, sometimes, you know, we're informed of near misses with 9 or 8 cars parking back to back and people running the gauntlet to get to the A4 and then not having desirable ends. We just have general concerns over the impact it's going to have. If on the map that Mal had up earlier, you will see that the access route goes straight across the main pathway. So people generally walk along the pavement, cross up to go through the playing fields. You know, we're talking, you can have 400 to 600 kids from the primary schools and the secondary schools through that route at the end of the day. You know, there's no idea yet of when the hours of work will be or when Banksman will be there. For us, it's just too sketchy at the moment. And, you know, we still haven't had a land agent appointed. We still haven't had formal notification. You know, there's a resident behind me that harasses me every time I see her for answers, and we just don't have them. So I appreciate there's pressures on funding and deadlines, but you know, it's been in the planning for 12 years. It's just a shame that we find ourselves in this situation with so little time.
At this point, I'd like to turn before that turns to the clerk, because you raised a point about the formal notification of the trust as landowner. And I ask, what communication has Thatcham Town Council received as landowner relating to this land?
None, Chairman.
I don't think they need to. Anybody can apply for anything.
Yeah, but the point is that they can apply for it, but the point is that following that up by construction, there's no point planning permission without the intentions to construct. So the point is, prior to this formal process does not require the landowner, but it would be
It's
customary
courteous at least.
customary to talk to us.
I think for me, Mr. Chairman, there's a specific question and box
Yeah,
on the planning application form. Has the landowner, if it's not you, if it's not your land, has the landowner been informed of your intention?
Mhm.
And it's been clicked yes. We've never received any formal notification of it, and it seems like the town council's in a similar position.
So,
worst position.
clarify, they have spoke to you about the scheme, but the tweaking, because this is tweaking stuff.
Yeah, we still.
They haven't spoken about the tweaking, but they have spoken about the
We've
scheme.
been told that the process will not start
Yeah.
until West Berkshire Council's legal
Yeah.
team formally notifies to the town council, the West Berkshire Council's intentions
Do what?
to build the scheme on private land.
But this is not only, so the point is that I guess there are three elements to this. There is the loss, whatever financial arrangements there are for the loss of the land itself. There is the compensation for the disruption
Phase.
phase and the things like the restoration of your facilities, and there's a loss of income, and that applies to you, and it applies to the cricket club as the tenant of the town council, but the town council still is responsible as the landowner, still needs to be contacted for consent. I'm not quite sure what the legal situation for a drainage scheme is.
As Councillor McCann said, it's not consent.
Yeah, but the point
They
is,
can do it under the 1822 Land Drainage Act,
yeah,
whether or not you agree.
yes,
But they are still required, like a compulsory purchase order.
yes,
They are required to give you,
yes.
and that is our bone of contention. That still hasn't been received.
Yes. Okay. So, and that of course, yes,
For example, we cannot have a conversation with a land agent and appoint a solicitor until we have the notice of intention to say what we're actually engaging a surveyor on.
yes.
You know,
Are you on about this? Are you on about that? In other words,
yeah, you know, we could spend lots of, we
Okay.
could spend lots of taxpayer money on our surveyors and
Back in
solicitors.
the committee.
Yeah.
So, what is your view about, okay, Councillor Cottingham?
Yeah, can I just pick up on what Nathan's saying about the number of people impacted? So not sure we really want to get into a numbers game, because it's slightly disingenuous to say only 150 people access the cricket club site over a weekend. So if you look on a Saturday, you've got 2 teams playing, you've also got all the supporters.
I'm going by what your website says.
That's just saying on a Friday night, that's the number of juniors, then you've got all of the parents. So you're looking at thousands of individual visits throughout the season. And also I would deem there to be a number of visits to the town council offices during the day, which would be severely impacted as well. So, yeah, I think we all agree that it's going to impact the access, the scheme, and coming up through Brownsfield Road, I have very similar worries, as I alluded to earlier, about health and safety, the mud onto coming from the vehicles. Brian and I did discuss potentially coming straight across the car park, and the car park then being used to clear the vehicles and going in between the tennis court and the mem hall. And again, frustratingly, no reason has been given why that hasn't been adopted as a potential solution. No,
We've been told the financial side of it, because the house, Paul Backus, the chief engineer, will not sign off on that on the access route unless it's permanently closed to the public.
right.
Yeah, which then got all the cricket, the bowling club, and
Which then,
scouts
you
and
know, we have 700 young people attend the Scouts and Brownies, just over 700 young people.
Yeah.
The bowling club, you know, it's not easy, but it is relatively simple to find a new home for the Scouts and the Brownies.
Yeah.
Find us a temporary bowling green. You know,
5 years later.
it's roughly, I think the study we did, it's roughly 8,500 people will be affected if we close our site.
Yeah.
Let alone trying to find the £185,000 the car park brings it.
I would personally challenge that statement that you would close the site, because you have the fair, you have the circus, having access through the gates. What was preventing a fence being put in between that route, running down the left-hand side, so people, pedestrian access could go down the left-hand side and come out?
Talking about vehicular access, the Scouts and the Brownies will not meet unless an ambulance or a fire engine can get to their buildings.
Okay.
Or instead, they won't let them meet. Likewise, hopefully no one in the room bowls, but the average age of the bowler, you've got to have similar concerns about safety.
Okay.
And I think for some of the events that take
So
place
it's
in
really
the
good
memorial.
that's been explained.
Yeah.
Because no explanation has been given over why that has been.
And for some of the events at the Memorial Hall itself, will require the ability for people with limited mobility to attend as well.
I think the biggest thing for us is, as I said before, a number of our assets are on long-term leases or on commercial agreements. For example, when we take the War Memorial car park out, we are not talking about the £15,000 income that the foundation gets from the Memorial car park. Our commercial agreement, if we default on the provision of the land, you know, they will come after their portion of money. You know, that car park generates around £180,000 to £190,000 a year. So, you know, that's what they'll be coming after, because that's part of our legal agreement. And we've defaulted on that. You know?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, these aren't, you know, it's a bit like the tennis. It's not the Lawn Tennis Association. The National Tennis Association is quite the same. They've got a legal agreement. We've defaulted on our half. Give us the money. We've got no asset in which to provide that money for.
So, and the last point I want to make is regarding the compensation is what I've been told by provider to relocate those nets. There's a limited amount of time ready for the cricket season starting in April. They have to be put in by February, March, £100,000, whatever it is. And we need to have that money ready from the environmental agency. So we're ready to be able to have net practice come the start of the season. If that's not there, we don't have nets.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have very upset members.
Exactly the same with us in football. If we're running a project from April to October, you lose 2 years of football.
I think we're probably getting into a level of
It's a
detail.
gritty, yeah.
Well,
So can I just say that I think the point I'm getting to, we have, I think, accepted that with reservations, the final solution. We have serious concerns about the construction phase. Numerous concerns, and not only about the feasibility, but the question about the financial compensation for the impact. Not only the amount, but the timing to enable the remediation to take place. Now, in terms of a planning application, the question is, how do we address that in a way which can inform the planning, assuming it is Eastern Area Planning that decides this? How can we inform them? Because I would assume that they have to decide to either accept or reject or approve with conditions. And if they approve with conditions, then there is no more public discussion about the implementation of those conditions. I'm not sure if it is possible to split an application, but I think it's quite clear that, to me, from the discussion, that there is in terms of the bits that are the aspects that are relevant for planning application, there is clearly a deficit of information about how it will be implemented, but there is no accompanying information outside of the planning process to enable people, the impacted parties, to understand how they will be how that impact will be addressed, and therefore it's very difficult for us it makes it difficult for approving, because that is effectively once that happens, it's not clear how that will be.
Probably want to go back into committee, but can I ask one question before I leave?
Yes.
Tonight is a meeting because the town council is a statutory consultee.
Yes.
Will council as a landowner be providing a response to the consultation or not? And if not, do you explain why?
It came to full council.
So I think that's an interesting question. I need to defer to the clerk as to that matter, as to which would be the responsible body within the time frame. There is a meeting of RNA relatively
No, but usually that would happen as a result of receiving the formal notification. That would then be presented to full council.
Right.
So,
So, yes, so that answers your question, that we are not in a position to respond and apply. As a council-
Are going to challenge that or just accept that
No, no,
the
it's-
process has failed?
Yeah, the point is we will, I think we will be making a comment within the planning response that we have not, but we can't formally respond as the council to that aspect that we haven't been invited to ask to comment on.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you for your time, members.
okay, so
thank you.
that gives us a difficult decision to make.
We can talk offline about how we can make that work if we need to, bearing in mind the timescales by having an emergency meeting,
Yeah.
should we need to.
So the question I have, so we of course don't have to consider how Eastern Area Planning or whichever body it would respond to our comments. We can make comments. So we can say that we have the reservations we've already expressed about the final design, the final construction, the final implementation. But we have certainly serious reservations about the construction phase. The question is how we phrase that.
Yes, thank you. It is the construction phase, but it's the tail end of the construction phase.
Yes.
It is about, I'm not clear on how they're going to set the land back with the least possible damage and the process for that. For example, would the tennis courts be the very last thing to be fixed?
So what I'm going to say, without making,
Otherwise, you're driving over that to get up to do your next. So I think there would need to be some quite clear clarification on how that process is going to be enacted.
the wording I was going to suggest, I don't know how we do this in the tick the box, because we do actually have to give I believe we do have to give a one of three answers, don't we, or not answer at all. But the wording I would use is that we believe there is inadequate information about the impact of the construction phase and the remediation for the application to be approved as it stands. And of course, I think it's open to an applicant to provide further information during a planning process, and we would therefore urge West Berkshire Council to provide further information on those matters, which the town council would be happy to consider given appropriate timing. And then the other comment is that we are concerned that there has not been adequate discussion with the impacted parties on the financial, on how that impact can be mitigated and remedied, which we think is an essential part of the process of implementing this scheme.
Because it's not for us to comment on the finances, but it is about how we make it good.
Yes, and then the final comment is that the town council the town council has not received any communication about this in its capacity as the landowner of Brownsfield.
Can I also make another comment? So this is wearing my West Berkshire hat, being finance and corporate services portfolio holder. And the general pressures which we're seeing regarding inflation, especially on building costs. So I know the original estimate was around about £1.5 million, right, for the scheme?
Yeah, that one was varies, I defer back to, you need to go back to West Berkshire on the line.
Yeah, I
remember 1.2 once and then it became 1.5, 1.8. I don't know what's included or not.
Again, my concern is that cost has probably spiraled significantly since the original budget has been put together. And again, the Environment Agency, I know Prime Minister Sunak put around about 6 billion into the pot.
Can I,
And I just
noting
want,
the timing, I think that,
yeah, that's quite a way to want to make this.
that is probably not a matter which we need directly to
Well,
consider, because
It is regarding the finance viability, the
Yeah.
fact that do we secure the 2.1 million, whatever it is,
yeah.
for this
So
to work?
the point is, I think that the way that we would phrase that is, we think it is, I would use the word imperative.
Yeah.
That arrangements are, that arrangements are in place for the full cost of the scheme, including the mitigation and remediation before work commences.
Exactly.
Including.
That's exactly what you were about to
Including-
do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Including an appropriate provision for unexpected costs.
Costs, and also along with the compensation for
I should include that, yeah. Thank you for that. So I think in this case, I think we've reached the conclusion, and I would therefore, given that the clerk has been busy writing things, I think we probably ought to, if you could read back what you've got, because I think you probably get it pretty precisely, because I think in this case, we do need a specific wording on which to vote.
Yeah.
So
Well, you're
I can see that you've been writing fairly
copious notes.
yeah.
I figured you were going to ask that.
We were going to, I think we've already got the comments about the final design as we've already had those, we've already agreed those, so you've got the wording for that. So it's just talking now about the construction phase, if you could come back on that.
I will. I will refer to the recording for the
Okay,
precise
thank you.
wording, but it's about the inadequate information on the impact of construction and remediation. For us to approve at this stage.
For it to be approved at this stage, because we're not.
Yeah. Urge West Berks Council to provide further information on these matters. The TTC would be happy to consider, given appropriate timing. Not received any formal communication in capacity as landowner of Brownsfield. And imperative that arrangements are in place, including mitigation and remediation before works commence.
There's actually like compensation, mitigation and remediation.
Yeah.
Of
I will
affected
get
parties,
to,
yeah.
One last point, Chair.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear what both councillors Lund and Watts have to say. I appreciate I've spoken a lot.
Yeah.
Also, Councillor McCann has spoken not quite as much as me. But it'd be interesting just to hear your views.
Of information to take in.
Yeah.
But I don't feel as though I've had an awful lot of workings on before, so I'm just processing what I'm hearing at the moment.
I'm not happy about the oak trees. Is there nowhere else that we can do this?
I regrettably, I think the only
This is why we.
the only option would be to move the whole thing further south and effectively destroy the cricket pitch.
Oh, in that case, right, okay, then we'll have
Yeah.
to go with your.
So
I'm
very sorry, so, yeah.
Provisions.
So with that proposal, and I guess the question is, we would then effectively be saying at this stage, reject. Because we have said this is inadequate for approve. So if you could tick the box reject and say at this stage.
Object.
And add the words at this stage to the form, because we have to give an option.
We're gonna be really
Yeah.
reject.
And so that is the proposal that I would like to make. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, councillor Cottingham. And those in favour of that course of action? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you very much for your input. And I'm not sure if we hope, but I guess we hope to we'll be able to see you again for discussion on the further information that we've requested.
Yes.
Because of course I suspect that if it gets delayed beyond the statutory deadline, I suspect that the applicant will not take legal action against the local authority in this case.
Probably not.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
And That turns to the remainder of the agenda, which thankfully is fairly short.
Too many.
Well, it's, yeah, so there's two.
Thank you, Chair, for guiding us through that quite difficult landline process.
Okay. So we have two more planning applications. Which are a loft conversion.
Yeah.
Thank you. But we've got probably got to see, yeah, I'm expecting that they don't appear to be particularly sort of extensive in their, in these.
some reason it's not happy with all the documents that are there, so bear with me while I just open these. Okay, let's start with the street view. Okay, so 126 Bath Road.
Oh, so it's actually on the bathroom.
That's in my report, I think.
There we go.
Oh, it's slightly on.
So just to give you direction of where we are, this is where the houses are set back in the sort of little lay-by Hennick further up this way.
Yeah.
We talk the other way.
And
towards the
the
garage,
dentist
probably
is here
garage,
and the
just the garage.
Oh, yeah.
This is the property here, as you can see, it's behind quite extensive hedging, so not a vast amount of street view. It's currently a single story building with a pitched roof. The application is to convert the loft space into one ensuite bedroom. And as you'll all be familiar, it's quite an array of different mix of properties in the local area. And
Most of which are more visible from the street.
Yeah, because you can't see that one.
Yeah.
Well, no.
quickly goes round. So this is the front elevation. Is that existing? Or no, that's proposed. So this will be the front elevation. And yeah, that's really all that will be seen from that street.
Making a lot of difference from the outside.
Not a great deal of difference.
So,
That's the existing.
Hmm.
Lot of.
so anyone have any comments? I see nobody, see nodding of heads, so
We've all got
therefore,
yes.
can I therefore propose that we, given the limited extent of the development and the even more limited visibility of it, that I propose that we make no objections.
Can I, before we do that, can I have the building expert in the room for his view?
I was merely thinking how many people along that road have done
Already
the
done
same
it.
thing. And we would be
Yes. Yes.
having extreme difficulty saying that they can't.
Yes.
I was actually trying to work out, I was trying to mentally Google Earth it, because I know that whole road there, there's lots of people who have done something very similar.
Yeah.
The screening is helpful, but it's not the issue.
Okay.
For my brain, it was more about if you refuse something, if you were to go against something like that, there's about 20, 30 other decisions that
Yes.
would make you look,
Yeah.
not happy.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as there wasn't a massive strong objections from like 75 neighbours or something like that. It's not an overdevelopment, I wouldn't have thought so by any stretch of the imagination.
I propose that we make no objection. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll expect to do them.
Councillor Watt, so all those in favour of making no objection, thank you, that's unanimous. And we move on to the third and final application.
This is an aerial shot.
Google Earth.
It's currently a garage which will be demolished for the accommodation. This is number 15 here. And this is the proposed site here.
Yeah.
And street view, it's not a terribly good view, but gives an idea. So this is number 15.
Yeah.
This is about the best view I can get. That's to be demolished. And this is the site here. And you can see it's on a corner plot
Yeah.
here. It will be a detached, let me just open up the that one. It's a detached 3-bed property. There we are, that's the proposed design.
Is it coming from the landowner or from a developer?
It is from the landowner of number 15.
It probably will be flipped, won't it? It'll be sold on.
But well, let's go, but the design is fixed.
This is number 15, the existing. This is the proposed new dwelling. There are some comments from highways.
To be with that.
Pre-planning advice was sought, and the outcome of that was that it would likely to be acceptable in principle. The proposed new dwelling is set back from number 15. Materials are to match the existing street scene. A new dropped curb will be required if the application is approved. Highways have requested amended plans be submitted to address, rather than having 2.5 parking spaces per property, that there be 5 full parking spaces shared between the 2 properties. The access point is widened. There should be provision of an electric vehicle charging point, and there should also be provision of cycle storage.
So in general terms, Councillor McCann, do you have?
Yeah, actually, highways have dealt with half of my brief. I would be concerned if they didn't increase the access from the road, bearing in mind its location. There's other concerns I would have about turning circle to the car to the right-hand side of the drawing. You normally have to have a 3-point turning.
That's not a lot of.
And that looks like he's got to reverse it past 3 cars. So I would be concerned from just that 2 points. One, access needs to be guaranteed from that current exit and entrance, but it needs to be of an appropriate size, and that there is enough of a turning circle for the vehicles to actually park there without endangering, because if it's sold on, the people next door might be different people in 5 years' time. So that would be my only real concerns.
Could I suggest no objection subject to highways? Highways being satisfied with the amended design. Councillor Lunn.
Can I just ask, the top right-hand corner, top left-hand corner of the property, is that now going to be of the new dwelling? Will that be attaching to a current existing property?
The new dwelling is detached.
Right, so that behind the existing dwelling, that is just garden area, or
Yes.
right?
I mean,
Okay. And that amenity space above will be the new garden to the property, will it?
111, yeah. I think 80, something like that's normal.
Just interesting how the drawings are dated December last year.
Yeah, why has it just come in now?
Well, of course, it's they did because they had a pre-app
All pre-planning.
So yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
I'm suggesting no objection subject to highways being agreeing to the amended plan. Do I have a seconder for that? Oh.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we then have a list of
Possibles.
seven which we will not consider unless there have been any
And they haven't, Chairman, so no need to consider.
no objections, so we don't need to consider those. Then we move on to decision notices.
Just 2 decisions since the last meeting, one of which is contrary to the committee's response. And this is the 6 Sargood Close proposed rear dormer loft conversion. And basically, to summarise, the reason for refusal from West Berkshire Council is the proposal would have a detrimental impact on the prevailing street scene and the character and appearance of the area. Town Council raised no objection to that.
Okay, thank you. So we then move on to what looks like a long agenda item, a long item, but a short discussion possibly. Planning matters appeal under section 195 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. And this is an appeal relating to an application that was not considered by the Town Council. So might I suggest that as we didn't express a view on it at the time, we don't need to consider the appeal. Is that content with that?
Yeah.
It's also in a industrial area well away from any residents. So that so any 7B, any planning matters?
There is one, Chairman, and members may recall my email, I think it was yesterday. It's the premises licence application for Kennet Crayfish Company. Our next meeting is after the deadline and there's no opportunity to comment beyond that deadline, which is the 13th of November. However, because we haven't given advance notification on the agenda, we can't take a decision on it. So my advice would be that committee makes a recommendation and the application is presented to F&GP on the 30th of this month.
Thank you. So would you like to give us an overview? So licensing is a different process to planning applications. It is even more, as far as West Berkshire Council is concerned, it's even more legalistic. There's a very formal process for it, and that's why there's a very formal deadline.
So this is an application from Kennet Crayfish.
Excuse me, do they actually get crayfish or?
I thought they were probably the most of the Kennet they wanted to get rid of because
That's exactly what I was thinking, the whale catch in the American crab vesicle.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a premises license application. The premises will be a place to dispatch online orders and for collection of orders only. It's for custom made gin, which is produced in Yorkshire. No alcohol will be consumed on site, and the property will be open 9 AM to 4 PM Monday to Friday. And
what is the property?
some 20, so this is the layout of the store. And this is its location.
So, okay.
Away farm. It's not terribly clear from that where it is, but
Yeah. So there's a number of small businesses already there. I'm not sure if there is any residential. It probably is one residence there, isn't there?
It doesn't look very residential.
I think that the house may still be, the farmhouse itself may still be, but it's as alcohol licenses go, this seems to be fairly unlikely to cause any of the statutory problems with alcohol. So
It's just.
can I suggest that, do we need to discuss this any further or can we make no objection to this?
No objections.
I'm not quite sure what this a licensing thing, do we, I guess it's the same.
It's just licensed to sell.
Same options we have.
yes.
Yeah, okay, so we make no objection to this one.
So it's open from 9 till 6, 9 till 4 rather.
Don't tell my wife they're making gin or distributing it and.
Well, they're
Love it.
well, they're selling it, aren't they? Well,
They're selling it, so so they're selling it.
So thank you for that. Then we move on to agenda item 9. So the first. Agenda item 8, I'm sorry.
You'd slip there.
Okay,
Refurbishment of the cushion.
yeah,
Somebody vandalised them.
I suspect, don't quote me, but they may be intending to replace tarmac, or it says cushions, so it may be.
That's
Maybe
what
that
they
there
call those new things.
The new ones are cushions, the old ones are bumps, so it may be that they're replacing bumps with cushions, or it may be that they've worn out and they need to be replaced.
Shame.
Either way, I think we had lengthy and unproductive correspondence on the subject
Yes, we
of
did,
cushions. So, can I suggest that we note this particular thing, this particular information?
Yeah.
Can I propose that? Any second? Thank you. Those in favour of noting that, thank you. That's unanimous. So moving on to agenda item 8B. Looking at the time, can I just skip through these quick? Well, 8B is the footpath that crosses the Lower Way Field, which was very recently created as a public footpath in response back to the planning application. It has already been notionally closed for 6 months. In fact, that hasn't come into force because the developer has not started work and has in fact not put up the signs that would be needed to close it. But they've asked for an extension of 6 months. I think in fact that this is a notification. So could I just suggest that if Madam Clerk, you could put a note in your diary for a meeting or two before the 2nd of May, where we come back and take a look at whether they've started work.
Yeah.
And if not, if they haven't started work by that point, we might suggest to West Berkshire Council that they don't allow it to be extended, because it says it's done by the Secretary of State, that the council has to ask that. So that notes, then we'll note this because there's absolutely nothing we can do about it.
No.
Draft parking strategy.
Huge document.
Yeah, it's a huge document. So I noticed, I went through, there's a few things relating to Thatcham. So it covers the whole area. I noticed that they were talking about that they referred to the desire in Thatcham for the arrangements for parking fees to be uniformed.
Yes.
I think they meant uniform. Rather than putting the same clothing on each of the parking meters.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
The question that the deadline for this is notionally before our next meeting.
It is.
There's always a question here about how firm the deadline is. Perhaps I should have spotted that and asked. Because the deadline is in fact, I think, a Sunday at midnight, and we meet on the Tuesday. So do you want to go through? I'm noting the time. I'm wondering if there is a way of dealing with this offline and possibly requesting that, because there are an awful lot of questions which most of which are not relevant. So the other point that I noticed is that the paid parking on the roads around Thatcham Station are for a very long period, 7 days a week. But basically the demand is for commuters and people working on the estate. And that we should be encouraging people who want to go to Reading to use the train rather than drive all the way. And obviously this Thatcham Station is too far for most people to walk to it, and certainly to walk back in the evening. So I would suggest that we ask them to review the hours and fees for that particular parking.
Or off-peak.
Yes, for off-peak, yes. I don't know if how would you like to deal with this, Madam Clerk? That was the two things that I noticed. And the other point is that they make a comment that the government has not yet brought into force the provisions to enable councils to enforce parking on pavements.
Yeah.
But if they do, then that West Berkshire Council is minded to request that the authority to do so. So I think we would probably support, given the comments that we've received from residents, we would support them having the authority to do that, even if they obviously they have discretion about it. Councillor McCann.
Yeah, I was more of a curious question. We have 3 large car parks.
Yes.
In the town: Waitrose, the Co-op,
Yeah.
and indeed the Memorial,
And the 4th one, Gilbert Court.
and Gilbert.
Yeah.
What does West Berkshire have the authority to determine what people charge?
They own 2 of them. They own one, they manage one, and they don't on the other 2. But the question is to ask them to try to facilitate alignment. Yes.
It was one of our manifesto commitments to look at the car parking route, and I know it's one of councillor Brux's
Yes.
passions to look at how do we optimise
Yeah.
our parking revenue? Because I think as you alluded to earlier, Mel, that sometimes a lower price can actually generate more revenue for
Yeah.
the community and everything else. Certain times,
And-
so I think we've been looking at being creative in how car parking charges
Yeah.
are levied, collected and priced.
Yes,
And also that reducing the chargeable period to times when there's demand and making it free elsewhere can actually encourage people to come in over a wider period and benefit results.
I'm definitely in favour of
Yes.
that direction, shall we just call it, no more than that at the minute. I'm definitely in favour of that. But if you're going to talk about having a car parking strategy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then I would look to the Waitrose car park as an example of how not to maintain a car park.
Oh, it's a
It
mess,
is
isn't it?
absolutely disgraceful. The trees have
Oh,
grown.
It's Kingsland
And
Centre.
no one has had the common sense to move the disabled parking spots away from tree roots. They've just blocked off sections of it. And it's
the arrangements for that are complicated because.
I understand, that's fine.
Yeah, anyway, yes.
I do understand that, but it's more the point that.
Yeah.
Automatic.
Yeah.
It's,
Yes,
that's all.
Yeah.
I think West Berkshire are a wonderful organisation and under fantastic management.
forward. The Carcass noted those comments. I don't think it's actually the online form has many questions, most of which are not relevant, and I don't think it's actually particularly helpful to try to massage what we put into that online form. Hopefully the officers will be amenable to receiving text on what matters rather than. So what I'd suggest is if you check with West Berkshire Council if they can accept a 2-day delay.
Yeah.
Or 3-day delay because it will come in on Wednesday. And if they do, then if you come back to myself and we'll collate a more comprehensive response. If they are unwilling to do so, could you convert the notes that we've made, the comments that we've made into a short text response to submit?
So, bit of context, this document has been discussed at the Ops Board, which is the executive of the West Berkshire councillors.
Yeah.
So we have discussed little things like electric vehicle charging,
Yeah,
making
that's
sure
right. Well, yeah.
that you have
Yeah.
electric vehicles which are charging in the spot rather than electric vehicle not being charged. And things like
That's fair.
a vehicle, do they need to pay for parking whilst they're charging the vehicle? My argument is probably not,
It
because
should be in.
They've already paid.
it's a double
Exactly.
tax.
You get enough money off it.
Exactly. Yes, you're charging the vehicle and the council's already making money from that rather than,
So-
it is a bit of bone of contention.
I am.
Vehicle myself.
Looking at the time, I think can we agree to, can I propose that we follow that course of action to make.
Absolutely.
To ask.
Makes perfect sense.
Yes, okay, can I just, I think, as a principle of submission that might go, can I propose that and have a seconder and then we'll agree to do that? And that's agreed, thank you, so that course of action is agreed, thank you. And that again comes to outstanding highways matters, updates on highways matters.
Madam Chairman.
Anything, highways matters arising since publication of the agenda, thank you very much. So with that, that's 8:59 PM.
Oh, just-
The meeting closed.
Are we got 2 hours cut off, are we?